All right, everybody. Another day, another project on the Porsche here. Also, the truck sitting right over there. You can see that. Got some IndyCar racing on the TV. We're going to dive in on the Porsche back here on the rear brakes and on the shock. So we're going to jump right down here. I already pulled the wheel off, got it jacked up, all that good stuff. Save you the pain of watching that. But anyway, we're going to get this apart. We're going to go after those brake rotors. Go ahead and swap those out. Then we're going to pull that shock and spring and all that assembly back there. We're going to swap out the shock and put a new bumper and all that kind of good stuff in there, and then put it all back together. I'm not going to change out the shoes on the parking brake. They're not worn very much because I already did the other side. Learned a little bit as I was doing that. But they're not worn much. They're working great. That's not a high wear item. I have some shoes if I needed them, but I'm going to skip doing that because that works. And I'm just going to put new rotors, new pads, get the rear caliper kind of cleaned out and stuff. The other one, they're not leaking. Everything seems to be working. So I'm just going to do rotor shoes and then do the suspension part there as far as swapping out the shock and the bumper and that kind of stuff. Gonna put conies on the back, but anyway, that's what we're gonna do today. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working on getting the caliper off. Will be step one, and once we do that, then we can get the rotor and all that. So stay tuned. Here we go. All right. So step one of getting this caliper off. Go for that nut right there. I had to put a breaker burr on that thing. It did not want to move, but that's it right there. Once I got it busted loose with the breaker burr, then 1/2" ratchet worked fine. There's that one, and then there's another one down on the bottom. Can't really get that one on camera, but there's another one down there. Once you do that, then the caliper will come off. You have to wiggle a little bit to get the pads to break loose, especially if you have old rotors like this with a lip on them. And that may be what you got to do. But anyway, those two bolts, and that gets the caliper off for you. All right, everybody, there's that caliper came off. You can see where the pads were sitting there. I did have to tap right here with the screwdriver just a touch to try to open that up, because you can see they slide, they're supposed to. But anyway, I did that just to open that up just a little bit so I could get it over the lip that's on this rotor. That's the two bolts right there. They come out, they're 19 millimeters. So take those two out, and you can pull that, get it apart. I got this kind of hung up on my suspension there, so it's not stressing that too much. And now I'm going to go ahead and get this rotor off. As you can see, these come, I didn't know that, but they come with like this spacer. It's just standard. So pretty light. And you can see it's hollow on the back. That's just like a stock spacer. So I guess that's just the way they were able to use the same rims front and back, but still get the offset they needed. So anyway, and then there you go. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that rotor off. Once we get the little screw right there, another little screw right there. So we'll get those two out, and then hopefully that rotor just slides right off. All right, everybody, got those two screws out. They're just short little Phillips screws, but you may need to put the screwdriver in there and tap it a couple times just to kind of break the corrosion loose. I didn't have to do that. I was just able to put a big screwdriver on it, and they came right out pretty easy. There's the rotor. You can see right down in there is where the parking brake shoes are right here. So those look pretty thick. So like I said, I ain't gonna mess with those suckers. They're working. They don't look that bad. Everything's still connected. I'll spray some brake cleaner around and stuff in the mechanism maybe, but everything seems to be doing good with that. So I'm gonna leave that crap alone, and then go ahead and put the new rotors on. But the issue is I got to do the strut and all that back there first, or well, the shock and all that. So I'm not going to put the rotor on until towards the end. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this bolt right there. There's a bolt right there. And then when you do that, you got to hold this other end of it that's over here. It's back underneath there. But you got to hold the other end of it too. So I'm going to work on trying to get that out so I can work on dropping that shock and working on that next. Okay, so here's the setup. Told you that was back there. I moved the caliper and stuff out of the way. So there's that end of the big long pin that goes through the rear suspension. So what I've done is put the 22mm wrench there. Once I twist it, it should come down and kind of lodge itself on this piece of the suspension, and then that'll help hold that in place. Over here, I've got that socket on there with my breaker bar, and based on what I had to do from the other side, I'm gonna borderline give myself a hernia to try to go ahead and bust that thing loose, and but hopefully not. And once you get it going, it comes out all right. And then once that happens, what you got to do is tap it out from this side. So I just use like a little screwdriver or something and tapped it out. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and try to bust this loose, and then hopefully be able to pull this pin out, and that will free up all the suspension stuff so that I can get that strut out of right there. And when I do it, I'll go back and look at this video, but I got to make sure I get all those washers and stuff in there just right, because they go in a certain way. But here we go. Wish me luck and no hernias. Okay, so I was able to get it out, no hernia. Anyway, so there's that. You can see I've got it most of the way out. I took this scissor jack and stuck underneath the, I guess the hub assembly there. So that's just supporting that. Try to keep it fairly straight, maybe take a little tension off of it. And now what I got to do is grab that with some pliers, or the other thing I was doing is just taking my 22mm, sticking it on there like that, and then hit that to try to drive it out. You know, hit it with my rubber mallet. So anyway, we'll just work on driving that the rest of the way out. And once we get it all the way out, then we'll be able to get this shock out. Whew! Oh my goodness. All right. It's hot down here in Florida, summertime, so I'm sweating, but I got that thing out. So I had to pry on a little bit to get it started. Once I got it started, then I put the wrench in there, beat on that like 274,000 times, and got that thing to back out of there. Once I got it far enough out, I could just hit on that washer right there with my rubber mallet, and it eventually gave up and came out. So that's done. Now I got to go to the top of this shock mount up here in the trunk, undo the bolts up there, and then we'll be able to get that spring and shock assembly out of there, that coilover assembly, whatever you want to call it, and start working on squishing that spring and changing out the shock. Okay, so here we go. I just have to undo those 3 bolts, and that will allow the coilover assembly to drop down. So I'm gonna go ahead and figure out what size those are, back all those suckers off, and then get that coilover out of there. All right, we got success. So you can see that thing dropped down. The reason that did that, take you on a little trip up here, is those bolts came off. Those are, let's see here, I think they're 17s. Yep, they're 17s. So you can see there. And then this little cap here sits right there. Sorry, that little cap sits like that. But once you take those bolts out, it drops down. You can see how it dropped down. And that's it. That looks a little rusty right there, but it's just color. It's not, there's no actual texture to it or anything. So anyway, that's it. So now that comes out. Now we go work on that on the table where we can get a better position. But we'll squish that spring and get the shock changed out. Okay, here we go. Here is the rear coilover assembly. So step 1, got these spring squishers from O'Reilly's, pretty cheap. I did the renter tool, but then I ended up keeping them for too long, so they probably won't even take them back, but whatever. not a bad tool to have. Once you've got that squished, then you got to get this nut right here off the end. So once you get that, in order to get that off, it's a 19 mil, which happens to be the same thing as what it takes for the spring compressor. And then right here on the end of this, you can see how it's got a flat spot to it. Well, that's where I just use the channel locks. So channel locks on that, 19 mil on the nut, go opposite directions, loosen it, and you're off to the races. You may have to get an impact to do it. I had to do that on the last one because the end of the shaft right there started rounding off. So anyway, I got an impact and busted it right off. But today I didn't need to do that. So anyway, I took everything off. So as it was sitting this way, so as it came off, I put whatever was, down towards the bottom of the shock, I put down on the table. So there you go. There's your pieces as you come along. That's just a little dust cover deal. Get down here, and now you got that little spacer washer thing. That is a gnarled up looking bumper. Been tearing itself apart. Probably because the shock ain't any good anymore. Anyway, here's your coilover assembly and stuff, and then there's the bottom. So I'm gonna have to get that stuff off. I'll replace the bumper. I got a new one. And then you got to get this cap right here off. Just hit that with a hammer or something, comes off. Then you got to get this whole assembly off. It slides up, so you hit it with a hammer, and it'll slide off that direction. And once you've done that, then you've got the kind of the naked shock, and we'll replace that and just rebuild it in reverse. But that's all the parts laid out there for you. And obviously the spring piece goes inside of or over the top of all this. But anyway, that's it. That's what we got. So I am going to replace the bumper and the shock, put all this bullcrap back together, and then work on putting it back in the car. Okay, so I got those things off. I just use a hammer to put the end on a board so I didn't chip my garage floor up. But there's this piece here. You just have to tap that off. And here's this, which was sitting like this. I'm gonna clean that sucker up before I put it back together. Get some WD-40 or wire brush, that kind of good stuff. Get that all cleaned out before I put it back on. You see, here's the ridge where that catches. There's the new bumper. And then up here you got your new nut and plastic washer thing. So that's all the new parts for this new Coney, and we'll get it all set up, get it put together after I do those things I just told you. So I'll show you once I got it back together. All right, everybody. So this is mostly back together. I just stopped real quick to show you some updates. So there's the bumper. That little piece right there doesn't fit on there. So if you can see, I just had to use this little, that little plastic washer they give you. It sits on top of the shock because the shock body is fatter than the original. So that's why that thing won't go down on there. They give you a new nut, and there's the old bumper. This thing literally like crumbles. You can see how it just falls apart. That was long past its expiration date. So down here, instead of having, like I showed you on the old one, that little flat spot, this is a number 6 hex goes in here, and that's how you hold that. And then you put your 19 mil wrench on it, tighten it down. So I just tightened it down so I had some threads there, kind of snugged it up just a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and start letting the spring loose. You just got to make sure when you do that you get your springs seated in the right places, so you can see here how that spring goes where it stops. So do that. Same thing on here, just it's on the bottom, but I twisted it around to make sure it was there. I'll just keep that lined up as I loosen the spring, and we're back in business. We can go put it in the car. There she is, completely back together. All I gotta do now is take that over and stick it back in the car. But I'm gonna go walk the dogs and eat something first. All right, everybody. I got the thing back in, so I had to move my scissor jack over and actually use it to hold up the coilover. But there it is. It's back in on the top. Now I gotta do some wiggling down here to get it in the bottom. I've got all the, there's a washer, there's a washer, there's another washer that fell out on this side over here when I took the scissor jack out from under the hub. Anyway, I got to put all those washers back in the right order. I'm going to clean that pin off, probably put a little bit of axle grease on it just to help it go back in and lube things up a little bit so it can move around the way it's supposed to. But that part's in as far as holding it up, and then that allowed me to get in here, tighten those things back. So now I just got to get that bottom part in and get the pin done, but I'm going to get to work on that and show you when that's done. All right, so that thing is in. The pin is all the way through. Took a lot of work with the scissor jack, using the board here to kind of put it on an angle, just working this thing back and forth, trying to get all the washers where they're supposed to be and all of that. Bit of a workout. Use the old rubber mallet there. That one's seen better days, and I probably should go buy a new one, but anyhow, that SOB is back in. Now all I got to do, washer, bolt, tighten that thing back down, and then I'm off to the races on putting new pads in this caliper right here, slapping a new rotor on this puppy, and putting all this crap back together so I can put it on the ground. Alright guys, when I put the rotor on, you just have to twist around until these holes right here where the screws are line up. Put the screws back in so the rotor's on. Now we're going to move on to the caliper up here. So as you can see, I've already got pads out. Interesting. I'm going to have to clean out some cobwebs or whatever that is right there. Yep, I'll get to that. Anyway, new pads are down here. Camera's doing a weird focusing thing. Anyway, old pad on the floor, new pads in the box. And these are all the pieces you have to take out. So there's this piece that clips on the back, right back here, and holds the pins in. It clips into, wherever it is, the little holes right there. Clips into those little holes. This pin goes through here, like that. Comes out the other side, that pin goes in that little hole. And then this spring thing right here sits down in here, and the pins hold it down. So that helps hold the brake pads in. But anyway, so just take that little clip thing off the back. 2 pins, I just tap them from the back with like anything, ratchet, whatever. Grab one with a pair of pliers from this side, pull them out. First one you pull out, this thing will come out. Then just the second one comes out really easy. But that's that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the new pads in after I squish that piston back in there, and spray some brake clean and stuff on this, try to get it cleaned up a little bit so it'll move, because this top part right here is supposed to slide. This part slides back and forth inside of this part. Mine don't slide too good right now, so put some brake clean and stuff on it, get it wiggled loose, and then we'll be all set. Okay guys, here's this thing. So this is the part of your sensor that goes in the brake pad. Goes in this little notch right there. This is the other end of that cable. Goes back there, and it just has 2 of these little fittings with these rubber weather guards on them. Goes back here. I'll try to show you where it is, but probably gonna be pretty challenging. Anyway, maybe I can do it better from over here. But yeah, right there, that's where it connects. You can see that connector right there. So you just have to connect those, doesn't matter which one's which. But both of them go in there, and then route it back up through. There's a little clip right there that it clips into, and then bring it over here, and it clips in through the the back side of the caliper after it goes through another little bracket thing that's on the floor that I can't find right now. But anyway, you just got to run that center line in there, and that's it. I'll show you when it's done. All right, new pads are in. So here's the trick. The outer one has to go in first because it has a little notch that it catches in right there, and it won't slide in from the top. So put that one in the notch and everything, slide the caliper down, get it where it's supposed to be, start both of your nuts right there, but just get them started, leave them loose. Then pound the caliper that way till you get this outer shoe as close as possible. Make sure you got your cylinder compressed, and then that one should slide in. If not, then loosen your bolts back there, tap it a little bit, get that caliper to slide over and get, I mean, it is super tight. So anyway, that's the process. Outer one, put the bolts in, leave it loose, push the caliper as far inboard as you absolutely possibly can, and then slide the inner one in. Now I'm going to have to put in those two rods, the spring mechanisms and all that, which will then also hold that thing in the back, which will help hold the sensor cable, which goes back there, clips in, and then goes and hooks in. I got it hooked up back there. Anyway, it's all hooked in. So once I get these two pins and the springs in, this is done. Then I can put the spacer on, put the tire back on, put this thing on the ground. Okay, everybody. Got all that done. Got the tire on the other side, got the jack under here. Got the jack stands out from under, but there you go. Tire's back on. So I'm going to show you from the other side because it's just easier and better view. But I'm going to go ahead and let this thing down and then see where it's sitting, see if it's sitting any higher or not. All right, there she is on the ground. I would have to say it sits up higher because I'm pretty sure before the back tires were up inside of the fender. I'll go back and double check, but that's what I seem to remember. So that may settle a little bit as it sits, but it looks like it's definitely sitting up a little bit higher. We'll go test drive it another day because it's late and I'm tired. So we're gonna say that is that project's done. Now I just got to get that power steering pump working and do some CV boots, and old girl will be ready for the road. I might just have to go ahead and start driving it around with some messed up CV boots, just a little bit anyway. Just get it on the road and get it used, get it moving. Try to enjoy it. I've been putting a lot of work into this thing, and I can do the CV boots in a few weeks. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and go get this thing registered as soon as I get that power steering pump done. But that's it for now. So please subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff so that you can see this thing get on the road, see us take it out someplace and enjoy it.